It was the sixth day of the freeze-out between Chase Sterling and me. Late at night, a shadowy figure wielding a knife vaulted onto my balcony. In a panic, I dialed Chase for help. The moment the call connected, his cold voice cut through the line. "If you know you're wrong, then come over here and apologize to Bella. Stop trying to compete with her all the time. While her parents were hiring top-tier tutors to groom her, your mother was busy dragging you around looking for her next mark." Before his voice even faded, the cold steel of a blade pressed against my neck. I let out a self-deprecating laugh, hung up the phone, and closed my eyes. The safe code is 0101-01. The bank card PIN is 666-888. Please, just make it quick. I don't want to suffer. When the silhouette had first flipped over the balcony railing, I was lying in bed scrolling through my phone. My thumb had just swiped past Bella Kensington's Instagram story. In the photo, Chase was surrounded by a group of trust fund kids, with Bella at the center. She was wearing an off-the-shoulder cocktail dress, holding a wine glass, and leaning her entire body weight against Chase's shoulder. Sitting in front of them was the SpongeBob SquarePants cake Chase had once promised he would make for me with his own hands. Their smiles were languid and relaxed, exuding that specific kind of boredom that only the ultra-wealthy possess. I opened my text thread with Chase. The last message was from 6 days ago. 6 days ago, I had emailed my grad school application to Dr. Arthur Vance. He was a prodigy in the medical device field, known for accepting at most one student a year, sometimes none for several years running. It was a rare opportunity, and as fate would have it, Bella was also determined to secure that spot. Chase wanted me to drop out. His tone had been impatient. "Chloe, why are you always trying to take things from Bella? Her family owns a medical device conglomerate. She needs this degree to take over the family business. What good will it do you? Are you planning to spend your life slaving away as someone's employee?" Before I could even explain, Bella had chimed in with a look of feigned open-mindedness. "It's okay, Chase. Let's just compete fairly. Honestly, I envy Chloe. She can do whatever she wants. The Sterling family will always support her. She could be a leisurely housewife. Unlike me, I'm stressed about the succession, and I have to watch my back against my dad's illegitimate son." Recently, news had broken that Bella's father had an affair and a child out of wedlock. Chase and his circle of childhood friends empathized deeply with her situation. They were exceptionally protective of her. As they spoke, the group turned their grievances toward me. Bella thought for a moment, then offered me a friendly suggestion. "Chloe, actually, I think you're better suited for something like fashion design. Or maybe art history, something to refine your taste." Her words dripped with condescension, but the group of socialites acted as if they didn't hear the shade, nodding in agreement. I knew they mocked my taste behind my back. They thought my daily uniform of t-shirts and jeans looked poor and embarrassing. They didn't even know my college major or my GPA, yet they felt entitled to offer me advice. Chase rubbed his temples, his voice dropping a few degrees. "Chloe, has the Sterling family given you too much? Have you deluded yourself into thinking you're on equal footing with us? All these years, everyone has looked out for you. This spot, considered a way of repaying that debt. You should let Bella have it." The disgust in his eyes stung. "Looked out for me? Did he mean the way they pointed me toward the seats at the far end of the table during dinner parties? Or when we went shopping and they used me as a bag holder, assuming I couldn't afford anything? Or at the stables, when they showed off their thoroughbreds and said kindly, 'Chloe surely doesn't know how to ride. Just watch us'? Or perhaps he meant the times when relatives gave me a hard time, and he'd say, 'Chloe hasn't had a father since she was little. Since her stepmom married into the Sterling family, she belongs to us.' I used to tell myself they meant well, but now I realize they knew exactly what they were doing. It was charity dispensed from a high horse. And now, I had become the ungrateful charity case who didn't know her place. I had laughed coldly. I never felt I needed to repay any debt, and I'm not giving up on my dreams for people who don't matter." With that one sentence, the atmosphere in the room shifted. Chase hadn't contacted me since. I rubbed my eyes. The moment I closed the chat window, my peripheral vision caught the movement in the vanity mirror. A dark figure was walking toward me. The wind rustled the thin lace curtains of the balcony. The streetlights outside cast a hazy, shifting glow across the room. The figure was built like a tank, and the object in his hand reflected a sharp, icy glint. My heart plummeted. I remembered the string of home invasion murders that had been dominating the news lately. The killer was ruthless and still at large. I scanned the bedside area. Nothing to use as a weapon. My hands and feet instantly went cold. Running out to scream for help wasn't an option. I wouldn't make it. We were in a townhouse complex in the hills, low density, high soundproofing. Even if I screamed, no one would likely hear me. By the time anyone arrived, I'd be dead. His approaching footsteps, my heartbeat, both were deafening in the quiet room. Cold sweat drenched my back. Survival instinct took over, and my fingers dialed Chase's number on pure muscle memory. I had him on speed dial. It was faster than calling 911. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to be calm. I tried to sound normal, even affecting the dependent, slightly whiny tone of a girl in love. Chase. The call connected. Before he could speak, I spoke quickly in a voice that sounded foreign even to me. Where are you? You said you'd come keep me company today. I left the door unlocked for you. As I spoke, I watched the mirror out of the corner of my eye. The shadow heard my words, and, sure enough, his footsteps paused. I prayed internally that Chase would pick up on the anomaly. I rarely spoke to him in that cloying tone. I was usually straightforward. He used to pat my head and say, with helpless affection, "Don't always be so tough. Would it kill you to rely on me a little?" Now, finally I was relying on him just as he wanted. Silence hung on the other end for a second. Then came the sound of raucous laughter. Holy shit, Chloe looks so serious on the surface, but she's such a submissive little wife in private. I told you, she's a fake, just like her mother. Total green tea behavior. Chase, you're too young. Once you've seen enough girls, you won't fall for this fake, hard-to-get act. Look, she's panicking because you ignored her. She even left the door unlocked. You're not actually going, are you? I always said these girls who claw their way into high society aren't innocent like Bella. Every voice was a blade stabbing into my heart. He had me on speakerphone. They were discussing me without a shred of respect, knowing full well I could hear them. In the past, my pride would have forced me to hang up immediately. But now, the dark figure behind me hadn't left. He seemed to be hesitating. I couldn't afford to care about dignity. I lowered my voice, infusing it with a plea. Chase, let's stop the freeze-out. Can you come to my house now? Please. Maybe the genuine terror in my voice leaked through, because Chase seemed to catch something unusual. He hesitated, his tone softening slightly. Chloe. Chase, it's all my fault. I was standing too close to you in that photo I posted. Bella suddenly interrupted. Her voice was sugary sweet, laced with self-blame. Chloe probably misunderstood. She's just worried I'm going to steal you away. My birthday doesn't matter, really. You should go be with her. The suspicion that had just risen in Chase vanished instantly. His voice turned ice cold. Chloe, put away your little games. If you know you're wrong, then come over here and apologize to Bella. Stop trying to compete with her all the time. You need to understand your status. While her parents were hiring top-tier tutors to groom her, your mother was busy dragging you around looking for her next mark. In an instant, the sound of the world seemed to be sucked into a vacuum. The viciousness of that sentence paralyzed me. I couldn't believe those words had come out of Chase's mouth. He knew. He knew I grew up without a father. He knew that when my mother married into the Sterling family, then in middle school, had stood at the top of the spiral staircase looking down at us with cold eyes. He called my mother a gold digger and me a brat. But later, when he had a high fever that wouldn't break, it was my mother who sat by his bed all night. When he got into that car accident on the day of his SATs, it was my mother who shielded him with her own body. The Sterling family covered up my mother's death to protect his exams. They didn't tell him until he was done. I, however, failed my exams completely and missed out on my dream university. During that time, when I refused to eat or drink, he made the desserts my mother used to make, coaxing me to take one bite at a time. He said he would protect me for the rest of his life. He said he would take my mother's place. Now, he was saying my mother was just dragging me around looking for her next mark. I didn't hear the fresh wave of laughter that erupted on the other end of the line. I used the last of my strength to silently hang up the phone. All my struggle, all my hope for survival, was extinguished in that moment. A second later, the cold knife pressed against my neck. The person behind me had steady breathing. The hand holding the knife didn't tremble at all. Terrifyingly stable. A pro, I thought. Fine. In that moment, my mother's gentle smile floated into my mind. Everyone thought she died protecting Chase from money and status. Only I knew the truth. No, she just loved children. She raised me well, and she cared for others just the same. Even if the person in the car hadn't been Chase, she would have protected them without hesitation. I laughed at myself, closing my eyes. The safe code is 0101-01. The bank car pin is 666-888. Please, just make it quick. I don't want to suffer. The anticipated cold sting of the blade never came. The shadow didn't speak. My calmness turned to confusion, then shifted into the sharp anxiety of the unknown. What did he want? Then a low scoff sounded in my ear. Ms. Summers, you really don't value your life, do you? My heart skipped a beat. He knew my last name was Summers. Since my mother married into the Sterling family, Everyone assumed I had taken the Sterling name. So, he had background checked me. Who was he? An enemy of the Sterling business empire? I was just a stepdaughter. If someone wanted revenge, they should go after the heir Chase. A burglar? Would a burglar investigate my background beforehand? Countless thoughts exploded in my mind. I held my breath, maintaining my position on my side, every inch of my skin pulled tight with tension. The mattress behind me suddenly dipped. He was actually sitting on my bed. So arrogant. His movements were unhurried. My scalp tingled with fear. Was he a sadistic killer who enjoyed toying with his victims? I could accept death, but I couldn't accept torture or humiliation before the end. If that was the case, even if it was hopeless, I would fight to the death. Just as I was calculating my next move, he spoke. The voice belonged to a young man. It lacked any lecherous or suggestive tone. Instead, it carried a grave seriousness. Was it your boyfriend you just called? Call him again. Tell him to get over here. What? I hesitated. He let out a cold chuckle. What's the matter? Worried about him? If only one of you can live, who would you choose? If Chase hadn't said those words earlier, I might have actually worried about putting him in danger. But now, my only worry was what this man would do to me if Chase refused to come. My hands trembling, I dialed Chase again. It was Bella who answered. My voice was flat, devoid of emotion. I need Chase. Put him on. Bella laughed lightly on the other end, her tone proud and disdainful. Chloe, your mother used her cheap life to barely buy you a ticket into the Sterling household. You should cherish that, not shamefully try to seduce your own stepbrother. Girls shouldn't have such low self-respect. Besides, how long do you think you can keep him by selling your body? My brain buzzed with a deafening static. For a moment, I couldn't hear anything. Simultaneously, a feeling of ultimate humiliation burned through my gut. Chase had told people about us. The year my mother died, I developed anorexia. To cure me, Chase drove home from school every day to cook for me. He had grown up with servants. He didn't know how to do anything but open a fridge. That day, his hands were covered in blisters, but he managed to make my mom's signature dessert. His eyes were so bright, his tone so certain, when he said he would learn to make 100 desserts for me. I thought he was just talking. Until the night, I ate the 99th dessert. Overcome with emotion, he kissed my cheek gently, coaxing me into giving him my virginity. Chloe, he had asked softly, what do you want for the 100th dessert? A SpongeBob cake. Tragically, that very cake had ended up at Bella's birthday party. I didn't know how he talked about what happened between us. What was his expression? His tone? Was it locker room talk? A joke? I usually didn't deign to explain myself, but in this moment, my voice came out dry and rasping. It wasn't like that. Bella interrupted me with contempt. I don't need to compete with you. After all, the things you degrade yourself to get, I can obtain without lifting a finger. Don't bother coming to apologize. I don't want to see you. Just then, Chase seemed to return. His voice came from a distance, getting closer. Why do you have my phone? Nothing. Chloe wants you to go back and keep her company, Bella answered crisply. Tell her to come here and apologize herself. The phone was hung up without mercy. The bedroom fell into silence. In the dark, I spoke calmly. He's not coming. That's a relief, the male voice behind me chuckled. It wasn't until the 4th day of my disappearance that Chase realized I hadn't contacted him in a long time. He initiated the truce, sending me a rare text. Did you miss Dr. Vance's interview today? Still throwing a tantrum? It's good you didn't come. Bella's performance was outstanding. She's already locked in. Even if you came, you'd just be background noise. A few hours later, seeing I hadn't replied, he sent another message, dripping with charity. Still mad? Since you stepped aside voluntarily, come out. I'll take you to buy a bag. A few more hours passed. He issued an ultimatum. Don't push it. Keep this up, and I really won't talk to you. Unfortunately, I would never reply to the messages popping up on the screen. Seeing my uncharacteristic silence, Chase finally got angry. Fine. If you have the guts, let's have a freeze out for the rest of our lives. He held out for a bit, pacing irritably around his room. As evening fell, he couldn't hold back. He called me. The system message played. The number you have dialed has been suspended. Chase frowned, then his expression relaxed as if he realized something. He loaded a few $1,000s onto my phone plan, then messaged me again. Sorry, Chloe. I was mad and cut off your secondary card. Don't be mad. As an apology, I'm transferring you 10 grand for spending money. He sent a transfer for $10,000 via Venmo. Minutes later, he continued talking to himself in the chat. Bella is throwing a victory party tomorrow. We're going to Stables. You have to come. I'll teach you how to ride personally. No one will dare laugh at you. I'm having Hermes send a few riding outfits to your place. Pick the one you like. It was laughable. He didn't even know that I didn't need his money. I had never used the secondary credit card he gave me. Although my mother appeared to be a housewife after marrying into the Sterling family, the returns on her pre-marriage investments far exceeded what the Sterlings gave us. I wasn't the poor, ambitionless girl Chase imagined. While Bella's parents were spending a fortune grooming her, my mother was cultivating me just as carefully. Piano, equestrianism, golf. I had mastered every one of these elite skills. He had never truly known me. Like his trust fund friends, he saw me without designer labels and assumed I was capable of nothing. The transfer from Chase sat there until it expired. He stared at the transfer expired notification, stunned for a few minutes. It seemed he finally realized that this time I was truly angry. While he was zoning out, his phone rang. Thinking it was me, Chase answered immediately. The corners of his mouth lifted involuntarily, though his tone remained haughty. Well, picked out an outfit yet? Bella's voice came through the receiver. Chase, since when do you care about what I wear? I'll definitely stun you today. By the way, my car broke down. Can you pick me up on your way? The smile vanished from Chase's face. Suppressing his disappointment, he gave a perfunctory agreement. He picked up Bella, but didn't give her a second look. His fingers tapped on the steering wheel, his mind elsewhere. That was when the brand sales associate contacted him. Mr. Sterling, are we delivering the clothes to the Heights? Yeah. What did she say? We're here, but no one is answering the doorbell. Is Ms. Summers not home? An anxiety that had been hovering since yesterday suddenly gripped Chase's heart. He pulled the car over. He called me several times. Still no answer. Seeing this, Bella twirled a lock of hair around her finger, scoffing. These girls who haven't seen the world just love playing these silence games. She thinks disappearing for a few days to make a man nervous means she's won. It's so tedious. Chase paused, then resumed driving as if nothing was wrong. On the way, he called Mason Ford, who lived in the same gated community, asking him to check on me. Mason's background was noisy. He was swamped. The city isn't safe lately. There was another murder dismemberment case. I haven't slept in days down at the precinct. If you want to coax her, go check on her yourself. Chase's face darkened, and he stubbornly shot back. She needs to figure it out herself. Does she expect me to bow down every time? What's the point? Despite his words, once he hung up, the unease wouldn't settle. Eventually, he yanked the steering wheel, turning the car toward the Heights. I'll just pick her up since it's on the way. Can't be fighting forever. Bella's expression shifted, but she said nothing. As the car entered the villa gates, they ran into the property manager. Chase greeted him politely. Mr. Sterling, there's rain in the forecast tonight. The window on the second-floor balcony of your unit has been open for days. I was worried the rain might ruin the floors. I was just about to call you. Chase's chest tightened violently. Is Chloe not home? Chase asked instinctively. The manager paused, thinking back. Ms. Summers? I haven't seen her in days. Maybe 4 or 5 days now. A terrible premonition flooded Chase's mind. He slammed on the gas. The car roared into the underground garage. My Mercedes coupe, the one I drove often, was still parked there. It hadn't moved in days, covered in a thin layer of dust. The estate was massive, and the house sat halfway up the hill. It took 30 minutes just to walk out of the complex. You had to drive to leave. Panic seized him. He ran to the front door and punched in the code, but the lock didn't disengage. The deadbolts were engaged from the inside. He knew I had a habit of deadbolting the door when I slept. I had to be inside. Chase started kicking the door wildly. The manager jumped in fright. The security door was solid. It didn't budge. Bella couldn't watch anymore. She frowned and shouted from behind him, Chloe, stop it. Chase is here to pick you up, isn't he? Making such a scene with everyone watching. What will it take for you to calm down? If it really matters that much, I'll give Dr. Vance a spot to you. In the past, whenever she used this passive-aggressive retreat, Chase would turn his anger on me. But this time, uniquely, he glared at her with fury. Shut up. You're annoying me. Bella was startled by his ferocity. She shut her mouth resentfully, her eyes darting unwillingly toward the door. Finally, the manager brought tools and smashed the floor-to-ceiling window on the first level. Chase walked in through the debris, oblivious to the glass shards slicing his ankles. The living room was deathly silent. On the dining table sat a glass with half the milk I had left that night. The milk had curdled, topped with gray-green mold. The glass itself was one Chase had hand-blown for my birthday. He knew I cherished it. I always washed it immediately after use. I would never let it sit and rot like this. Chase stumbled up the stairs in a daze. The bedroom door was also locked from the inside. He kicked it with numb, desperate force. Mason's words kept looping in his brain. Home invasion, murder, ruthless killer at large. Bella followed him up, tried to persuade him. Chloe is being ridiculous. There's a limit to throwing a tantrum. Your foot is bleeding, and she's still pretending. Bang! The door flew open. Chase froze in the doorway. The curtains hung silently. The twilight filtered through the lace, casting mottled shadows on the floor. The room was empty. Locked. He muttered. Then how did Chloe get out? No, she has to be in here. His trembling gaze turned toward the closet. Inside the room, the phone on the bed was plugged into the charger, the screen still illuminated. Chase ran over and ripped the closet doors open. He let out a breath. I wasn't inside. His eyes fell to the safe in the corner, and his heart jumped again. The safe was open. It was empty. Chase hesitated for a split second. He walked aimlessly toward the balcony. The window was open. His fingers traced smudge marks on the railing. Someone had climbed in from the balcony. Unable to contain the terror rising in his throat, he turned and roared at the manager. Pull the footage. I want to see the footage for this window. The atmosphere in the security room was oppressive. Chase watched the footage frame by frame. Unfortunately, my balcony was a blind spot, but the cameras covered other angles of the house. On the night of the 7th, after I entered with my milk, I never came out again. The thread in Chase's mind snapped. He returned to my room and slumped down to dial 911. I want to report a missing person. My girlfriend is missing. The dispatcher asked him to stay calm, then asked, what is the missing person's name? Chloe. Is that her legal name? Last name? Chase froze. He actually couldn't remember my last name. He seemed to have never cared what my last name was. Sterling. Chloe Sterling. He tried tentatively. 22. Senior year. Lives at the Heights. Which university? And sir, can you confirm her legal name? What is your relationship to her? Chase couldn't answer. He only knew that on the day of the SATs, my mother died, and I missed several exams due to the shock. But he didn't know which university I ended up attending or what my major was. He hung up in frustration and called Mason. Get over here. Chloe is missing. What's the status on that murder-robbery case? Did you catch the guy? I'm worried. Mason interrupted him calmly. I'm out of town on assignment. Did you call the police? I did, but they asked me what Chloe's last name was, what school she goes to, and I couldn't f***ing answer. Silence on the other end. Summers. Her last name is Summers. Why Summers? Chase asked, bewildered. I heard her father was David Summers, the famous medical device researcher in the city. Dr. Arthur Vance, the guy everyone's talking about lately? He was David's student. Did you not know that? Chase didn't know how to respond. He suddenly remembered urging me to give up applying for Dr. Vance's program. He had explicitly said I couldn't compete with Bella. He had ignored my persistence, too lazy to even ask why. Chase suddenly slapped himself across the face. The sound was incredibly loud in the empty room. Bella stepped forward to pull him back, but he shoved her away. On the phone, Mason's tone remained even. I'll send a colleague over. Don't panic yet. No body means she might be fine. Maybe she just went out to have fun. Chase suddenly exploded. How could she be out having fun? She's not that kind of person. The doors were locked, car in the garage. Her phone is still here. Does that look like having fun to you? Mason was silent for a moment. Before she disappeared, did she say anything to you? Chase's face turned sheet white in an instant. She called me. She said we had a plan, told me to come over. She never talks like that. It was whiny, but also tense. No, we didn't have plans. The killer must have been right there. She was scared. She was calling to signal me to come save her. Mason asked, and did you go? Chase fell silent again. After hanging up, he tore at his hair in agony. Then a thought struck him. Chase grabbed the manager by the collar. Check the water meter. Has there been water usage in this house since that day? A million terrible thoughts flashed through his mind. If there was no body, she could have been dismembered and disposed of, or ground up and flushed. Chase was wound tight as a bowstring. The news finally came, and it broke him. The manager said confusedly, I checked, Mr. Sterling. No water usage since the 7th. But the strange thing is on the night of the 7th, several tons of water were used in one night. That rarely happens. The police arrived quickly. After a brief briefing, they began the procedures to confirm identity, collect fingerprints, and bag my phone. I want the septic tank checked. Chase suddenly interrupted the investigation. The police hadn't formally declared a homicide yet, but Chase couldn't wait. He privately hired a crew to pump the villa's septic tank. Chase was a germaphobe. He was obsessive about cleanliness. But now, he stood guard by the foul-smelling tank, staring blankly at the filth. While the workers were busy, a detective came over to ask, We checked Ms. Summers' phone. The last 2 calls were indeed to you. What did she say? She said. She left the door unlocked. She wanted me to come to her. Chase's voice was dry, filled with regret. And the other call? Chase frantically scrolled through his call log and froze. He remembered now. Shortly after I hung up, there was another call. He had been drunk in the bathroom. Bella had answered it. He violently grabbed Bella, his red eyes staring into hers. That call. What did she say? Bella had never seen him lose control like this. Scared pale, she shook her head repeatedly. She just said, "She wanted you. And you." He gripped her arm so hard his knuckles turned white. "What did you say? Answer me. The police are right here. If you lie, you're a suspect." Terrified by his manic appearance, Bella trembled, speaking through clenched teeth. I told her not to think she could bind you with her body. That's all. You told me to hang up. You said to make her come apologize. Chase, you're not blaming me now, are you? For some stepsister who throws herself at you?" Chase's brain short-circuited. Intense regret and rage demolished his reason. "What the FCK are you saying?" He raised his hand and slapped Bella across the face. Hard. Everyone present froze. Bella clutched her face, looking at him in disbelief. "Did I say anything wrong? If she was really in trouble, wouldn't she call the police? What use is calling you?" "Chase, I think you've lost your mind. Her mom used a cheap life to buy her way into luxury. Wasn't that enough? Do you have to be her dog now?" Before she could finish, a ruthless glint flashed in Chase's eyes. Amidst the screams of the crowd, he grabbed Bella by the back of her neck. Without a shred of mercy, he shoved her face directly into the open, foul-smelling septic tank. Gah! Cough, cough. Bella was caught off guard, choking on mouthfuls of the sewage. She struggled wildly, creating a chaotic scene. Neighbors who were watching just took pictures. The police were stunned for a few seconds before scrambling to fish her out. Bella was soaked, tears streaming down her face uncontrollably. Her meticulously styled hair and makeup were caked in slime. The stench was unbearable. Chase stood to the side, looking coldly at her wretched state as if looking at a pile of garbage. He warned her icily, "Next time you dare spread rumors, wash your mouth out first. If you don't behave, I don't mind letting your dad's bastard son take your place." Bella went rigid, forgetting even to cry, the blood draining from her face. She looked at Chase with terror, then, utterly humiliated, stumbled away. In the attic next door, the heavy curtains swayed slightly. I stood quietly by the window, watching it all. The corners of my lips lifted in a cold, soundless arc. The search of the septic tank yielded nothing. Chase reeked of the smell, too. Night had fully fallen, and the streetlights were on, but he refused to give up. Like a trapped beast, he demanded the police search the entire villa again. "I can feel it." His voice was hoarse, eyes bloodshot. "Chloe is here. She's watching me." The police brought in more officers for a carpet search. From the basement to the bedrooms, every corner was checked with abnormal scrutiny. Just as the search hit a dead end, Chase snapped his head up as if struck by lightning. "The attic. This house has an attic. The entrance is hidden. You need a ladder." Soon, a portable ladder was brought in. When the wooden panel was pushed aside, dust danced in the flashlight beams. Chase scrambled up impatiently. Then his eyes went wide. The four walls of the attic were covered in photos of me growing up. Me in riding gear, looking dashing on a horse. Me on my toes in the studio, dancing ballet. Me holding a piano trophy, smiling. The confident, bright Chloe that Chase had never bothered to see. These photos were all taken by my mother before she passed. This hidden attic was my sanctuary, the place I went whenever I felt wronged. It felt like Mom was still there. Chase still didn't find me. He was on the verge of a breakdown, even making a move to jump from the attic window before his friends tackled him. "Are you crazy? Calm down. No news might be the best news." Just one wall away, I sat on the floor by the window, reading a book. A projector on the wall displayed the surveillance feeds from my house. A man with broad shoulders and long legs pushed the door open, bringing in the cool night air. He took off his jacket, draped it over a chair, and sat down on one knee beside me. "Not going out to take a look?" His voice was low. I shook my head gently, lifting my eyes to the screen where Chase looked broken. "He's very worried about you," he added. I curled my lips, but there was no smile in my eyes. "So what? I don't care anymore. It turns out that when you don't love someone, you really can stop caring about their feelings." I didn't care about his mood. Seeing him in such a wretched state didn't make my heart ache. I only felt disdain for how ridiculous he looked. The man lit a cigarette, the ember glowing in the dim light. He turned his head, studying me calmly and carefully. "Chloe Summers, I think this is for the best." Just then his phone rang. His long fingers pressed answer, and Chase's hoarse voice came through the speaker. "Mason, when are you coming back to the city? Chloe still hasn't been found. Come back and help me." The man who climbed on my balcony that night was Mason Ford. He was my neighbor from childhood. After my dad died in an accident, my mom took me away from the housing complex. Years later, I became the overlooked stepdaughter of the Sterling family. He became the anomaly in Chase's circle of rich kids. He graduated from the police academy, carried himself with a straight spine, and had a natural air of righteousness. Mason was busy and rarely joined their parties, until he recognized me in the corner of one of Chase's Instagram photos. Coincidentally, he had bought the townhouse right next to the Sterlings in the Heights. That night, he had accidentally locked himself out on his balcony. In a pinch, he grabbed a garden trowel and climbed over to my balcony. He intended to ask me to call the property manager to open his door, but instead, I mistook him for a home invader. After I hung up the phone that night, he suddenly laughed. If he's not coming, that suits me fine. Chloe, I don't think you and Chase are a good match. Why not consider me? I stood up in shock, and only then did he turn on the wall lamp. The knife was a garden trowel. Under the light, I saw his familiar face, deep-set eyes, lips curved in a gentle but firm smile. I thought about it. I nodded. Then I asked hesitantly, if Chase finds out, what if he targets you? Are you that afraid of him? He rubbed the top of my head, his voice pained. That's not something you need to worry about. He's the one who didn't know what he had. Besides, he can't beat me in a fight. So what's he going to do? I didn't want anything to do with Chase anymore. I opened the safe, took all the assets my mother left me, and followed Mason over the railing to his house. That night, I forgot to turn off the bathroom faucet. Mason turned it off for me before he went to work. I didn't expect Chase to make such a huge scene over my disappearance, but I couldn't be bothered to face those prejudiced faces again. I never appeared again. Many people assumed I was dead, until 5 years later. I was taking wedding photos by the sea. As we drove away, Chase suddenly spotted me. He went mad, chasing us for miles, forcing my car to a stop at the end of the coastal highway. He seemed to have too much to say. His eyes churned with anger, grievance, and panic. Finally, with red-rimmed eyes, he gritted his teeth and asked, Chloe, where did you go? I looked at him calmly, the sea breeze blowing through my long hair. Didn't you tell me to give up DR? Vance's spot? So I tested into a classified unit. I haven't been allowed to contact the outside world for years. That part was true. I had been doing R&D in a secure facility. That was why no matter how hard he searched, he couldn't find me. Chase lowered his head, trembling. The sound of the tide rose and fell between us. After a long time, he used almost all his strength to beg, Chloe, let's stop the freeze-out. Can we just go back to how it was? Brother, I smiled, a gentle but distant expression. You're here on the island for a wedding, right? Didn't you see the bride's name? Look, after all these years, you're still used to ignoring the people around you. I handed him a gold-stamped wedding invitation. Groom, Mason Ford bride, Chloe Summers. I watched the color drain from his face. I started the car and added, my fault, really. I was too busy. We didn't even have time to take photos until now. My husband invited you. Remember to be on time. The car sped away. Chase stood there helplessly, clutching the thin invitation, looking as if every ounce of strength had been drained from his body.